Pop quiz. Which territories lie between Shoulderland and Hipland? A lot of you probably already know about Chestland, but in today's humble opinion, we're going to be kissing ass in Wasteland 2. Director's cut. Wasteland 2 is a top-down turn-based strategy game developed and published by inXile Entertainment. It's set in a nuclear holocaust, which is pretty fucking neato and has quite a few role-playing elements, like being able to specify each of your character's religions, backgrounds, and smoking and drinking preferences. While it's not really my thing to come up with such elements for a single-player game, I know at least a couple of creative types who would appreciate personal character development and consider this a plus. The basic gist of the story is that you are a band of new recruits for the Wasteland Rangers, essentially the only thing resembling a police force in the remnants of society. Much like actually being the police, no one is happy to see you. Apparently, you never respond fast enough, and your faction once shot a kid and his dog, so clearly you're all assholes committing hate crimes against the youth. Your first mission is to investigate the death of one of your fallen brethren while completing his mission, which puts you in the sights of raiders, rival mercenary forces, mutated creatures, and victims of horrific circumstances as you unravel the mysteries of another more dangerous threat, which is just what you need. The writing is great, with a good pacing and decent weight based on your decisions as you play. For example, if you answer one call to action, you'll get to hear the panicked screams of terror and the gradual death of the other destination that was pleading for your help. If only you'd been there. But hey, they also have a fair bit of comic relief to lighten up the mood. The thing that most stood out to me about this title is its level of quality versus my expectations. While it wasn't laden with poor community reviews, it just didn't look like the kind of game I would pluck out and put on my wish list. No offense intended towards the game artist, who is clearly very talented, but the promotional art just didn't seem to have the polished video game feel to it. It didn't scream well put together game, you know? It was more like homemade game disc mistakenly put in a Walmart discount bin, or the modern day equivalent, a game recently greenlit by the Steam community that immediately goes into early access. But in actuality, it was a really well thought out title with tremendous amounts of depth that made the game feel complex but not needlessly so. For instance, there are 3 different methods of persuasion of varying levels of effectiveness depending on the other person's personality. You can be a hard ass, or you can kiss their ass, or you can be a total Melvin, complete with goofy teeth and bow tie, and smart off. In fact, there's so much depth that they have to include an entirely different skill specifically for repairing toasters. Alright, that might just be for jokes in retrospect. When you're not making small talk with the locals, you're letting your guns do the talking. Or if you're ballsy, your fists. And let me tell you, the combat is deliciously tense. With ammunition, reloads, weapon jamming, and mischance, your best laid plans can come crumbling down around you at almost any given moment, which can be especially stressful given your character death is permanent. Luckily, the same factors affect the enemies, but still, you'll feel your lungs shrivel up the first time an enemy halves your health in one hit and poises to take a second shot. Positioning is also important, as friendly fire is a thing that can happen. While it makes sense not to position one character between its allies and the enemy to avoid getting shot, there are a couple of not so intuitive elements. For instance, putting them behind the enemy could still get them shot if the one shooting misses its target. Then there's shotguns and explosives to take into consideration, so you have to be paying attention. On top of that, weapons have an optimal range of use, and the elevation of the ground comes into play, so between all of that and cover, you'll want to ensure that you are constantly in the most optimal spot. Obviously, there's several ways to handle any given situation given your team's composition. You could pick open the fence or just kick it down. Probably want to disarm the traps first though, none of my business. I'd also recommend a medic, but again, that's none of my concern. Luckily, they also have a few NPCs that will join your motley crew of survivors and balance out whatever extremes you gave them in the name of opening absolutely everything as soon as possible. Knowing what I know now, I'm highly impressed and would be willing to spend around $50 on this game, which should tell you something because the average store price is $39.99. If you're into these kinds of games, definitely give it a gander if you catch it out for its lowest price on the Steam store at $19.99. I doubt you'll be disappointed. Wasteland 2 is a game that I played for quite a while, but have yet to scratch the surface in, and it does it in a way that you can burn away hours without feeling like you've played for more than 15 minutes. Between its story and the tactics, it's an excellent title that manages to pull it off without being overly clunky, though there are a few spots that I wish were improved, like healing and revival. For that, it earns a 9 out of 10 in gameplay. For the sheer amount of what it offers, it earns a 10 out of 10 in value. With an average of 9.5 out of 10, it earns an A.